What's more annoying to you, the extreme left or the extreme right?
The left viscerally makes me often want to punch them more, because they're just so often like anti-common sense. So they just insist on championing things that are really about them, but they have to feel like they're social justice warriors. You know, they have to. It's very important for them to feel like they're the good people. And by telling us that we're all bad, that's how they know they're good. People want to voice their opposition to what's going on in any administration. They're not happy with this, they're not happy with that. That's the way to show it. I mean, the Democrats are going to have to work really hard to figure out how they're going to blow this one.
Bill Maher is back, and he's not holding back. The far left has thrown every trick in the book at winning over Americans. Yet, their efforts keep falling flat. Maher sees right through the DNC's missteps. And in this video, he exposes the truth with ruthless clarity.
So I would like to have a strong Democratic candidate to get things back to a little bit of normal.
Is Newsom the strongest?
He is right now. I mean, again, California, a lot of crazy stuff in this state. We know better than anybody, you know? If somebody breaks into your house and you have to worry that you're going to go to jail.
Right.
You know, lots of stuff like that. Homeless on the streets. I mean, and that's not just California. I've seen a number of people have died in New York, homeless on the street, because somehow they got it into their heads that the way to treat the homeless compassionately was not to get them off the streets. You know, us old school liberals, when we used to talk about this issue, the compassionate thing to do was to make sure they got off the streets, not to protect them in their pristine environment underneath the bridge.
Bill Maher thinks Gavin Newsom might be the Democrats' best shot at reclaiming power, but he's dragging a ton of baggage. Earlier in the interview, Maher admitted Newsom has veered too far left for mainstream voters and hinted he needs to shift toward the center. The message is blunt. If Newsom doesn't dial back some of his progressive woke policies, 2028 could be a long shot. Maher also called out California's glaring crises under Newsom, rampant homelessness, and filthy city streets, saying these issues need urgent fixes if he wants to be a serious national contender. Maher argues Newsom must not only adjust his politics but also deliver real results, or his presidential dreams could stay out of reach.
Old school liberals would like to see a candidate in the Democratic Party who has the strength to disassociate himself from a lot of the stuff that made Donald Trump attractive to people who didn't necessarily like him so much, but just said, you know what? His brand of crazy, yeah, I'm going to go with that over their brand of crazy.
Bill Maher argues it's not just Gavin Newsom who needs to rethink his woke progressive ideals. The whole Democratic Party does. He says many Americans can't relate to the far left's policies and rhetoric, seeing them as extreme, out of touch, and disconnected from everyday life. From culture wars to economic priorities, voters increasingly view these ideas as performative rather than practical. Maher warns that unless the DNC recalibrates its message and focus, it risks pushing away the very people it needs to win. The party's survival, he suggests, hinges on addressing real-world concerns like the economy and public safety, while moving away from ideologies that feel radical or out of step with most Americans.
Another huge issue here in California and across the country is immigration. Now we're going to have a partial government shutdown over DHS funding. The Department of Homeland Security essentially not funded, at least part of it now, going forward for the foreseeable future. Is that the right fight for Democrats? And where do you think that should go?
Well, I think ICE and the border people already have the money.
Right.
So no. So I would guess that's not a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
They say that's the only leverage that they have.
Yeah. I mean, again, the leverage they have is to win the next election.
Maher is spot on. Right now, the Democrats have almost no leverage over Republicans who dominate the House, Senate, and presidency. With that control, the GOP sets the agenda, leaving Democrats scrambling to make an impact. The only real shot for the DNC to regain power is by winning voters in the next election. But Maher says they're failing miserably. A big part of the problem, he argues, is their obsession with woke politics, which many Americans see as extreme and out of touch. Instead of tackling issues that actually matter, like the economy, public safety, and healthcare, the party keeps diving into divisive culture wars. Unless they rethink their strategy, taking back control looks increasingly unlikely.
The numbers do not look good for the president or his party. And usually the party that is in the White House, they take a shellacking during the midterms.
Right.
People want to voice their opposition to what's going on in any administration. They're not happy with this, they're not happy with that. That's the way to show it. I mean, the Democrats are going to have to work really hard to figure out how they're going to blow this one.
Maher is right. Historically, incumbent governments rarely win midterms, so the Democrats were poised for a strong showing this cycle. The political math was on their side. A perfect chance to regain ground and boost their influence. But anyone who knows the party knows they have a knack for blowing even the best opportunities. Instead of riding voter frustration with the opposition, they get caught up in internal fights and controversial policies that push people away. One of the biggest hurdles, Ma points out, is their stubborn attachment to woke and progressive politics that many Americans see as extreme or out of touch. Until they refocus on issues that actually matter to everyday voters, they're at risk of turning a golden opportunity into yet another missed shot.
About your relationship with President Trump, which has been interesting over the years. What's the nature of your relationship with him now? What's that like?
Well, okay, well, first of all, the people who stopped watching my show because I had dinner with them are idiots, in my view. They just are. They're just
Right.
completely emotional because they're always asking the wrong question, which is like, oh, how dare you have dinner with Donald Trump? The question should always have been, what did I say after I had dinner with Donald
Right.
Trump? Now, if after I had dinner with Donald Trump, I came back to this show and was seduced by that dinner and stopped tearing him a new one every week, every time I thought he did something wrong, then you would have a case.
Ma didn't hold back when he tore into critics who bailed on his show just because he had dinner with Donald Trump. He called them out for being misinformed about what he actually stands for. For Ma, dialogue and debate are everything. He believes in engaging with people who disagree with him even when it's messy or controversial, because that's how real understanding and progress happen. His critics, by contrast, stick to their echo chambers, only hearing what confirms their beliefs and never challenging themselves. Ma sees this as a huge problem in today's politics, where nuance is ignored and polarization is rewarded. By standing his ground, he defends his choices and proves why open conversation still matters in an age of rigid ideology.
But I never stopped with Donald Trump. So I feel like having met him and sat down for 3 hours, it was a long dinner, and the left got very mad at me for reporting it accurately, which is he's very different in person. By the way, everyone who's ever met him says the same thing.
I would say the same thing. I've met him several
Of
times.
course.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't abide by this, but okay, that's the truth. He met Ma'am Donnie, remember? The mayor
Right.
of New York. He had been yelling and screaming at him, and then he had him to the Oval Office. I think he's a nice guy.
Right.
Don't you get it? He operates everything out of a personal relationship. You have to have a personal relationship. Trust me, he's not upstairs at night reading the briefing books.
Ma takes aim at the left for what he sees as years of mischaracterizing Donald Trump. He says many on the left spent years painting Trump as a tyrant and an existential threat, but constantly hammering that message eventually backfired. Instead of convincing voters, it bred skepticism and distrust. As more Americans started questioning the narrative, they began judging Trump on their own terms, not through the lens of his harshest critics. Ma argues this gap between political messaging and public perception actually helped Trump. Over-the-top rhetoric didn't weaken him. It pushed some voters straight into his camp, boosting support instead of eroding it.
So disappointing that some of the people who I think of as rational people, Donald Trump, he does a lot of stupid things. He also makes people stupid. like again, what is the alternative? He's the president. You can't not talk to him. What is the downside? I'm going to elevate him? Oh my God, you mean he could become president? It's just
Get a little more attention?
it's silly. And when you do talk to him, he does listen. That's what happened. He does listen. I'm not saying it's going to change him, but what I was trying to say afterwards when I talked about it at the end of last season is he needs more people like me talking to him.
Bill Maher throws out a tough question. What's the worst that could happen if the left actually faced the right in honest, real political debate? He argues that meaningful dialogue shouldn't scare anyone. It should be embraced, especially in a country this divided. But he criticizes parts of the left for being too emotionally tied to their positions to handle opposing views. Some arguments, he says, are treated as untouchable, sacred beyond challenge. That fear, he suggests, comes from the risk that a strong counterpoint could expose flaws in their assumptions and shake their worldview. Instead of seeing debate as a path to clarity, many retreat into ideological comfort zones, dodging tough conversations and missing chances to actually sharpen their ideas.
What's more annoying to you, the extreme left or the extreme right?
The extreme right is more dangerous. Absolutely. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe that in conceding elections. He's made that plain. The climate thing we just talked about, those are just two issues. There are others. The left viscerally makes me often want to punch them more. Because they're just so often like anti-common sense. So they just insist on championing things that are really about them, but they have to feel like they're social justice warriors.
Bill Maher says one of the biggest frustrations with the far left is rhetoric that feels completely disconnected from common sense. He argues that some rules and positions they push don't match everyday experience or basic reasoning, leaving people confused and frustrated. Instead of rethinking these ideas when challenged, some activists double down, defending them with absolute certainty. That, Maher says, kills productive conversation and makes finding common ground nearly impossible. His bigger point is that any movement that treats its ideas as untouchable risks pushing people away instead of winning them over. True political success, he insists, comes from staying open to criticism, adjusting when needed, and keeping ideas grounded in reality instead of rigid ideology.
We sort of saw both examples with the Super Bowl halftime show, where Kid Rock, who you had that dinner with, was doing his own show, and then Bad Bunny's doing his show. Which one did you watch, and what did you make of that cultural moment for America?
So funny. People were asking me the week before, which one are you going to watch? I said, I'm going to watch the real one, the regular one, like I do every year, and I'm going to honor it the same way by going to the bathroom.
Did you?
Of course, you have to go to the bathroom at some point.
Yeah.
But I watched it. I liked it. You know what? I didn't understand it, but like I said tonight in the show, I don't understand when Mick Jagger sings either. I don't understand any rock star. Nobody's really understandable. I didn't understand Kendrick Lamar very well either. I mean, that's okay.
This year's Super Bowl halftime show was meant to be pure entertainment, a musical spectacle meant to unite, not divide. It should be a break from the game's intensity, a shared experience anyone can enjoy, no matter their background or beliefs. But when everything gets politicized, even music can't escape scrutiny. Instead of soaking in the performance, people dissect every lyric, gesture, and visual for hidden political meaning. What should have been a celebration turns into controversy. This habit of politicizing art drains the joy from moments meant to be universal. Maher sees this as part of a bigger cultural problem. Entertainment can't just exist anymore. It must be analyzed, scrutinized, and politicized. He warns it mirrors politics. When parties ignore real concerns, silence debate, and cling to rigid ideology, they push away the very people they need. Whether in leadership, messaging, or cultural overreach, voters notice for the Democratic Party to recover. Maher argues it must reconnect with reality, embrace open dialogue, and focus on real solutions over slogans. And with that, we close today's video. If you liked it, hit that like button and subscribe for